Welcome to Media in the Mix, the only podcast produced and hosted by the School of Communication at American University. Join us as we create a safe space to explore topics and communication at the intersection of social justice, tech, innovation, and pop culture. Welcome back to Media in the Mix. We're doing a little special episode today. I'm going to hand it off to my colleague, Lindsay, and she's going to explain what we're doing here today, what we're talking about. Lindsay, take it away.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for tuning in to Media in the Mix. We're doing things a little bit different today. My name is Lindsay Zimnoch, and I am the Development Coordinator for the School of Communication in the Office of Advancement. And today I am super excited to interview two participants in our esteemed SOC Alumni Mentor Program, Grace and Jessica. Thank you for being here.
Yep, and if you have been following Media in the Mix this last year, you might remember me and Jessica doing an episode, fall semester, was that? Fall semester?
It
or
was
spring?
Around then, maybe
right
early
around this,
spring.
yeah, that like beginning of springtime, where we did talk about the mentorship program. But gosh, I mean, when you look at that time compared to now, we had like another 6 months under our belt. It's now the end of the year. We're starting into a new year. I feel like we just have so much to talk about. So
we have so much wisdom now.
Yeah, we do.
6 months more seasoned.
I really feel like it makes a difference.
It's been a long time.
Yeah,
it's the sequel.
Yeah.
Well, let's start at the beginning. Grace, tell us about yourself. You were a student here at SOC. Let's talk about that.
Yeah. So quick summary. I am a double SOC alum. So I was an SOC for undergrad. I did communications and I had a psych minor. And then I came back for grad school. I did film and media arts in 2017. And so I graduated right before the pandemic. And I was an athlete at SOC. I did swimming. So I was a swimmer. Gosh, so much. It was fun. I did LA Intensive, which is where I met a lot of the people I now know in the mentorship program, which is pretty cool. And yeah, just happy to be back working here now. I work for SOC. I'm their video production person, because just me. And I basically do everything video, audio, this podcast that you listen to. So it's been a really cool full circle moment to kind of just come back and work here now.
That's awesome. And Jessica, share with us your SOC student experience.
So I just graduated from the 1-year master's in strategic communication, officially a master communicator, as I like to tell people, which is awkward if I ever mess up my speech or say a word incorrectly, because they go, aren't you supposed to be perfect at this? And not exactly, but I had the greatest time. I took 4 classes each semester, 2 in the summer, so it was pretty jam-packed, really hectic. I was a full-time student. Some people do part-time, but not me. And then I also was a teaching assistant during my time here, really active in the classroom. My boss was Professor Rosalind Donald. She let me lecture and really work directly with our students, awesome. Which I loved, because I might want to be a professor someday. And what better way to learn that than to really get to be in the classroom, not just like grading and being 5 steps removed from the students or something. Now I am working part-time for the Center for Media and Social Impact, which is again connected to SOC. I was still working with Professor Donald, and then Katie Borum, another professor, is of course the director of that center, doing a study on the impact of climate justice documentaries on both the filmmakers and then also on a lot of the indigenous populations that were included in those films.
That's awesome.
That's awesome. I look forward to hearing more about that on Media in the Mix. We'll have to dig into that.
Reunion episode.
So I would love to just have a conversation with y'all today about your experience in the mentor program. So Grace, just right off the bat, what brought you to the Alumni Mentor Program, and what do you think makes a great mentee?
So what brought me to the program actually was around that same time I did a podcast episode as one of my very first at this job with Derek McGinty, who is also an SOC mentor. And he said to me, our episode was called Our Time to Give Back. And it was the first time I'd really dove into the subject of like, what do I do now that I have knowledge? And I don't want to say that it's all successful knowledge, because some of it's like knowledge from failure and things that I did wrong that I now know how to do better and you know, and such. But he kind of explained it to me as like, there's a certain point you reach in your career where it's not just about you anymore. It's about what can you do to give back? And that stuck with me so much. So when I got the offer to be a part of the mentorship program, I was like, absolutely, because although at the time I felt like I couldn't I look at Jessica and we're not that far apart in age. Right. So I think about it and I'm like, do I have that wisdom? Do I have that knowledge? But I believe it comes with experience, and so much happened in my life between the time that I graduated school and now. So I surprised myself, I think, and I was able to offer, knowledge that I didn't even know I was capable of.
I love that story. And what do you think makes a great mentee? What were you looking for in a mentee?
I think I actually told you this one of our very first meetings. I was like, we might not always have the same alignments in terms of like what we're going after. And admittedly, we don't really, right? Like there's certain things that overlap, but there's a lot that's different there. But I remember telling you, I was like, regardless of that, I want to be there for you every step of the way. So whether you have a question about what you should put on your resume, or you're just having a bad day and it's nice to know somebody to talk to, like I made sure to tell Jessica, like all of those doors are open. I didn't want there to be any barrier of feeling like you couldn't approach me on something, or, so I would say in summary, keeping that line of communication open is such a big thing. And then also maybe just like a little bit of transparency goes a long way in terms of what you're looking for. What you need help with. As a mentee, I would imagine that there's a million different things that pop into your head throughout the year, whether it may be portfolio or resume or job hunting or interviews or whatnot. So I just wanted her to know that all of those avenues are open to exploring, that there's not something that I'm going to say no to because maybe I'm not an expert at it or I don't know so much about it. So that was really important to me. And then also just open mind. And that goes for a lot of different things. And it kind of goes to my last point of like, there might not, you might look at your mentee and be like, oh my gosh, they're journalism and I'm film. How am I going to get them a job here? Right. But it's not always about that, and admittedly, we only have so much power when it comes to the hiring process and this and that. So I think even just guidance to your mentee helps so much. Even if you have a little bit of knowledge or somebody that's gone through that career path, like, providing that knowledge of like, this is what I know, and maybe I could connect you to someone that knows more. But I believe the guidance should always be there because as mentors, we do have the knowledge in a general sense to guide people through the specifics, if that makes sense. So
yeah, definitely. Jessica, what was it like for you meeting Grace for the first time as your mentor?
I was really excited because I realized we had the capacity to be friends in addition to being a mentor and a mentee, which I didn't necessarily come into it with that expectation. If there had been somebody who was like in their 60s or whatever, it might have been a little bit less of a pure relationship, but still tons of like professional support and wisdom and good advice, of course. So I was always hoping that was going to be there. But then truly, we just really got along. And it was so comforting because I was moving to DC and I didn't know a ton of people. I didn't have a really big network. So it was great because I kind of got the best of both worlds. I got somebody to kind of support me emotionally as a friend, which was really helpful for the transition. And then Grace is also just really smart and prepared to handle any type of question. And even if she doesn't know what to do, she's very enthusiastic about figuring out how to kind of like pass me off to somebody or show me other resources. So 10 out of 10.
Love that. That's so sweet. I think you guys have a great mentor-mentee relationship. I know throughout the program, we talked regularly, Grace and I, about like how things were doing. I like to check in with the mentors. And so, Grace, I'm excited to know what types of projects, ideas, or professional development opportunities did you see flourish in Jessica's particular path? What was going on there, and how did you kind of help her through that process?
First of all, I will say you're really good at checking in with the mentors and mentees, so bravo.
Thank you.
I love that. Gosh, I mean, so much. I feel like we touched on so many different points, from like resume building to just networking. I remember we talked a lot about just who we can approach, who we can talk to, interviews, where we should apply for jobs. I did my best to look at what she was interested in and take from what I knew and kind of provide what I could, I guess, provide in terms of different locations to apply to. Maybe we did a lot of exploring, I think, through campus jobs and what could work here. And that part of my life is so recent / I go through it all the time. When I leave a job, I'm looking for another job. So in a way, it kind of felt like for the year we were doing things together. It kind of like aligned with what she's looking for, what I'm looking for. And so we were able to just kind of help each other. And then a lot of the times it was just a check-in, we'd just get lunch, get coffee. How you doing? How's everything? Is there anything you want to chat about? And feel like we touched on a lot of different subjects, which was nice.
Definitely. I feel like one of your strong points too is you have that inclusive mindset. So as you're going through your life, obviously you are really busy and you're working, but you're also kind of thinking about me concurrently, kind of in a parallel timeline. Like if you're doing something, oh, maybe I can include Jessica in this, like doing the podcast. And you've let me be both on the microphone and then also behind the camera. So really both sides of production, which has shown up in kind of job interviews, because I can kind of show my writing skills to them with writing samples and everything, but kind of also saying, I know my way a little bit around microphones and cameras and some of those technical elements. And it's very honest, because you've created those opportunities for me that has shown up in the job search too.
Yeah. I can't believe I didn't even mention the podcast. That's so true. Mm-hmm. That whole week was like something new for Jessica, which I love to provide. I think that's the one thing I always ask people when I start to work with them is like, is there anything that you haven't done that you want to do? And I think that's how we literally got on the subject of the podcast. Yeah. And she was like, I would love to do a podcast episode. And she killed it. Her and Lauren were great. So episode. It was a new thing to both of you. And it was just like, it was so fun. And I loved watching that happen and come to life. It was such a special day. So yeah, you're right.
You helped me become an SOC celebrity.
I know. SOC superstar right here.
We literally still are with our mentor-mentee pictures too. Yeah. So
I know. So if you haven't checked out our Instagram, we've got Grace and Jessica leading the marketing for that. We got them at Jessica's graduation, and it was just like the perfect picture to summarize, what the Alumni Mentor Program means, and it's so special to see. You two, since we work so closely together, I know how important your relationship with Jessica has been, and how, you have been there for her through her professional journey. And now that you've graduated, which I will have to say, this is the first time that I've met with a student after graduation from the Mentee Mentor Program. Yeah. So this is really cool. And you talked a little bit about how Grace helped you develop your portfolio and maybe touch on some areas that you would be interested in growing professionally. And what areas do you think either Grace's mentorship or how did she embolden you to take new moves and try new things? And since graduation, how is that looking?
I think Grace definitely encourages my flexibility with what I'm applying to. My degree, just by nature, is really flexible. It's not like there's only one or two outcomes that you can have. And so she's kind of approved my choices when I've kind of said well, maybe I'll be an academic advisor, or maybe I'll go and be a marketing coordinator, and kind of saying yeah, sure, that makes sense. And kind of just the different ways to repackage the skills that I have and some of the experiences to fit those different things, but not looking at me well, you're not making sense. Why are you going this way? So it's just kind of nice to have that reassurance. That flexibility is a good thing. And I'm not just being haphazard, because it can feel like you're flailing a little bit when you first graduate and you're trying to apply to jobs.
I think we all went through that, right?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah,
where we're not sure if we're hitting the right target.
We're not sure. I'm what skills apply to what? I don't know. But to your point, I think I wanted you to know that there's so many skills in communications that apply to so many different things. And that's what I learned throughout my career, which I think eased a lot of my job hunting anxiety, of being oh no, this skill does work here and it does work here, So yeah, we talked about that a lot.
She's also helped me feel more patient, because I had applied to a job in July, and I know we were talking in probably early September, and I was going, I don't know, do you think I should give up on them? I haven't heard anything even about a first wave. But she kind of said, I don't know. I don't think you should completely give up yet. I think you should keep applying, but I wouldn't necessarily cancel out that one. And then I got a notification for an interview a week later. So I think she just changed my mindset too about the timeline. I think I assumed things moved a lot faster. She's just kind of telling me, no, you need to feel just a little more patient. Things happen at the most random times, and not everybody is really being speedy with hiring, even though they have positions to fill, which is a little confusing, but
I know.
She's been through it, so she knows that.
Yeah.
It can be a slow process.
I was on the other side I was in, I guess you could call it recruiting or HR for a year in my life. But that year taught me so much. And that I always try to think back to my experience in that year and all the people I had to deal with. And then I take that into my job hunting experience, because I'm I remember when something took a month and a half or 2 months to look over, or just even, so I always tell myself, give it 2 months plus another 2 months. It's a lot.
Yeah,
it's a lot.
It can. And so I think it's great to have the partner in that process. But I think what is really important to mention about your mentee-mentor relationship is that We do this for the academic year, so we do this in the fall up into the spring semester. But a lot of our mentor-mentee relationships continue on. And like you mentioned earlier, you become friends and you become a part of each other's life. Mm-hmm. How has that relationship helped you in your transition as from a student into an alumni, right? So we've talked a little bit about how difficult and challenging it can be navigating the new job, career prospects, but maybe just personally, what does it mean to you to have somebody who's now an alumni? You guys are both alumni, you're part of the alumni community, and having that network and access to that network. What does that mean to you?
The continuation of our relationship keeps me closer to SOC than I might have been, because I mean, obviously here I'm graduated and I'm back on the podcast, and Grace is helping me look at some jobs at American University and also just kind of giving me updates. And so I still feel in the loop, and I still feel like a lot of the relationships that are adjacent to her, people that she introduced me to, are still able to kind of stay fresh because we have that continuing relationship. So that's good, because I really want to stay involved. I don't want to just kind of disappear. And someday I would love to come back and be a mentor. I want just a couple more years maybe out before I come back and impart all of my amazing knowledge and experience on somebody. But I think it will be easier to come back because I still have this relationship going.
Right. And we would love to have you.
Yeah.
And now that you mention that, we do have a couple folks that are mentors now that, believe it or not, 21 years ago when this program started, they were a mentee. And so we've got quite a few folks that started off in this program as students that have now transitioned into that mentor role into the program. And we're so thankful for them. And they're really crucial to this program. A lot of our mentors, as you know, you mentioned Derek McGinty. They do this every year, and it's something that is really meaningful to them. And so Grace, as a double eagle, a double alum, when you see the cohort of mentors and the group that we have, how does that make you feel? What kind of pride does that give you as a SOC alum?
It's awesome, because I remember even just looking at my own cohort, more so grad school, because undergrad is such a big class, so you kind of had your group of people that you took the same classes with. But when I came back for grad school, it was very centered, like unless you were in film and media arts, you weren't in that cohort. So it was like a very close cohort of 20 people, taking the film and media arts program. And I remember even then just looking around at everyone and being like, everyone is so different. Everyone is coming from all walks of life, all ages, all races, just everything. It was so funny to look at all of us genius filmmakers, but then see all the different personalities, and ideas would spring from all these different personalities. And so I was really proud at the time, because I was like, this experience alone, I know, is going to launch me forward in my career. Being around these people, getting to meet these people. And so when I look at something like our mentorship program, it kind of feels that same way to me. It's just this tight-knit group of such different people that are able to offer all these different expertise. That's it's so unique, it's so special. And I think everybody comes from a different walk of life. Everybody has something different that they could put on the table. It's so fun. So it kind of brings me back to that time being a student, actually, which is pretty cool.
I love that. It's a little bit of that hands-on experiential learning that we provide here, not just at SOC, but American University. And I want to ask both of you, how does having a hands-on learning opportunity enhance your time at the School of Communication? So whether it was Jessica as a student, so for anyone listening, we are part of the experiential learning opportunities here at SOC, but that also includes, let's see, Classroom in the Wild. We've got Alumni in the Classroom. Grace helped me think of a couple others.
LA Intensive,
the LA and New York Intensive programs, which are pillars of our experiential learning.
SOC 3.
But as a student, SOC 3, our newest one, we just actually celebrated the 1 year. And so I'm sure we'll be hearing more about that pretty soon. But as a student, it can be challenging, right? Like working and going to school and maybe identifying those internships. So in many ways, the alumni program can help bridge those gaps, I feel. How do you think that SOC experiential learning helps students, and sort of how can we maybe better get the info out there. As a student, like, how can we be helpful in making sure that we're bringing these opportunities to you at the front and when you get here?
So now as a alum that is applying to jobs, I'm discovering that my degree alone does speak volumes, because obviously it's a really prestigious school and people recognize it. And so that will sometimes get me considered. But you need to supplement the degree itself with tangible items in your portfolio. A lot of these applications want kind of proof of the skills, not just, oh, you took this course, but they really want to see it for themselves on a website or in some kind of sample that you need to provide. And so only through really experiential learning can you kind of get these products. Of course, if you do the LA and the New York intensive, you showed that you traveled and you networked and you did whatever projects are done on those trips. And then if you're taking classes, like I took a podcasting class, I took content creation. So I was making videos, I was making recordings. Those are all things that you can pass along to say, not only did I learn these things, but then I can also demonstrate them. And I can imagine that in tons of mentor relationships, the mentors can provide opportunities in their fields for a similar type of experiential learning. They might say, hey, do you want to try drafting something? I mean, just as Grace was able to provide podcast experience for me because she is the host of this podcast, I'm sure that other people are doing videography and other writing samples. And if they can bring in their mentee in any way, even outside of the university, that's great. That adds other businesses and kind of like other sources of validation for those skills.
No, that's a great answer. I'm taking notes.
Yeah.
Okay, Jessica, I would love to hear any advice that you have for a new student entering the program that says maybe this student is a first generation student that doesn't come from a family of folks who went to higher education. Maybe the student also works part-time. Maybe the student's working full-time, right? So for these students out there that maybe don't have, the availability in the schedule, what sort of advice would you give to somebody who may struggle with saying, I don't know if I have the time for this program?
I would tell them that this program is whatever they make it. It's not on a formal schedule. You could talk once a month if you really wanted. If you can find 1 hour a month, then that's what it could be. And if you want to talk to your mentor on a Sunday and you agree that that's fine for your work-life boundaries to talk on the weekend, then you talk outside of the work week. It's not like a class, and it's not like a lot of these other things where there's such a set schedule that you can't get out of. You can make it what you need it to be. And then, of course, if you are more available, you can meet more frequently and kind of have a more enriching partnership, but that's up to you. So and you don't even have to meet in person. It could even be a phone call, and sometimes it can even be texting. I would text Grace a link to something, or she would just kind of send me a notification about something, and that's a 5-second interaction. So I feel like, I could justify if I have time to TikTok scroll, I have time to text my mentor.
Absolutely. That's a great point.
That's a great point.
Folks, let's hear that again.
If you have time to send a TikTok video, you have time to text No, honestly, we would do like voice notes to each other sometimes. I mean, it was so funny.
Because Grace is so expressive. She needs to send.
I'm just going to send you a voice note. And it would be like a 2.5 minute voice note. But, it's like that's how we kept in touch. And it worked. And also, I have to mention things like, what you said, Jessica, is so true. It is what you make of it. If you want to keep it a professional relationship, that's totally fine too. If it becomes more of a personal one, that's awesome. I feel like you just gained another friend, and that's how I feel our relationship went. And like I do stand-up comedy part-time, and like Jessica came to one of my shows. You know what I mean? Like looking out in the front row and seeing her there was so special. Like that was when I realized, like, oh, this relationship is more than just this is what you should put on your resume.
Grace is a funny lady, which from listening to this podcast.
We really just leveled up a little bit, I think, because we both realized, like, I think what we both wanted to put into the relationship, and we both knew we were on the same page, so it was easy to grow it that way. But like, at the end of the day, I also will say, like, if you just want to keep it professional, that's fine too. Right. Yeah, exactly. It is what you make of it. It really is.
And with what you were saying about first generation students, people who might not really understand college, because college is not intuitive.
No, it is not.
There are so many words that just don't exist outside of the university. And I don't know how you're supposed to distinguish them unless you have like phone a friend and like ask somebody. And so your mentor is that kind of non-judgmental person who has completed their degree. So they've been through years and years of school, specifically at your university too. So they even know American University specific procedures and lingo and just like the dynamic and the culture of the campus. And so they are the best resource to go to that is going to just answer your questions and not like laugh at you because like they're cheering for you.
A lot of them have been through this. Grace just recorded a great episode with Irina, and she talks about how you can come to SOC and then change your direction. Maybe you meet your mentor shows you a new path. Maybe they say, hey, I kind of noticed this is a strength for you. Have you ever thought about looking at that? So I really like that feedback. That's great.
Also, I will say, like, in terms of what I said earlier about keeping an open mind as a mentor, I will say a lot of that has to do with learning from your mentee as well. I feel like I learned so much from Jessica, admittedly, because we were just talking about. We had 2 different college and grad school experiences. You know what I mean? College, she's working for the dean's office, right? And you won an award there. Yeah.
That's awesome.
It's amazing. I failed my first 2 years of college, right? Lower than a 1.0 GPA. So in my mind, it's like there was so much I could learn from her because there was so much expertise at your age that I didn't have at that age that I was like, this is admirable. I love listening to this because this is something that I didn't experience, you know? And then in turn, again, going by the non-judgmental part of it, there was no shame on my end of being like, this is what not to do. You know what I mean? Because trust me, I've done it and this is how it turned out. So it's like, you know, you can learn and of course you're teaching and that's great, but especially when I think there's the beauty of like the more age gap you have, you know, it's like some people think, well, there's nothing I can learn. No, absolutely you can. So I would think that goes in line with like keeping an open mind because there's just so much your mentee could teach you.
It meant a lot to me when you started opening up to me about certain questions and challenges that you might have been facing in the workplace, because then it kind of was like, ooh, the tables have turned. And I got to put on the little mentor gap briefly and talk it through with you. And that's important because I'm about to be doing all the same things. I mean, I'm not exactly, but be at the kind of similar level in my career. And so it was such a moment where I was like, yeah, this is an equitable relationship. Like we truly are able to converse as just 2 professionals because we are both educated professional ladies.
Yeah. And I knew she had enough expertise to give me advice, you know, like I opened up to her comfortably being like, I need help and I need some advice. And, you know, maybe we're not going through the same things, but possibly one day maybe you will, and I hope that you can think back to that conversation, and although it's like my struggles, I hope it can help you in some way, you know. So yeah, that just open mind goes for so many different things.
No, I love that. And I do find that a lot of the students that are in this program are super inspiring. And Grace, I can say too, when I was first starting off in college, I was a first gen student. I did not walk out of the door with straight A's my first year or my second year. And so, you know, I resonate with that. I resonate with that. And I think that, you know, one of the great things that the mentors get out of their mentorship in this program is exactly what you're saying, Grace, is that perspective of, you know, newness, new ideas, new ways of looking at things that can be helpful to mentors in their careers and to the things that they're doing. You know, sometimes as we age out of school, we are maybe not up to tune with what's hip, what's happening in the PR world, what's happening in journalism right now. What are the threats to media currently, and what are Gen Z students having to face in those environments? And so I think that is a really great point, Grace, is that we have a lot that we can learn from the mentees as well, and making sure that communication stays open. Does anyone have any closing thoughts? What do we want to impart on both mentors and students as we close out this podcast?
I will say it's only a year. And that seems like a really long time, but it goes by so fast, as Jessica could tell you. And so I think just take advantage of it. There's only so many times in your life where someone's going to be like, here's a mentor. Enjoy, you know? And it's like, use that up take advantage of it. I wish I did that more when I was an undergrad and a grad student. I mean, I had so many awesome people around me, whether it be professors. I didn't do a mentorship program, you know. At the same time, everyone kept telling me, talk to your professors, network with your professors. But I sometimes just like objectively look at this program and I think like this is such a special, unique program because there is it really is like once in a lifetime things where somebody kind of just hands you this tool that you could really utilize for a whole year. That's 12 months, you know, so take advantage of it. That's my only piece of advice.
Love that, Jessica.
Yeah, I agree. I would say try it. It doesn't cost money. The application takes probably no more than 15 minutes. If you really, really do not like who you're paired up with, you're not stuck. You can part ways. And so try it. And my other thing that I think I said back in the spring when we were talking is to be intentional. And neither side of the mentor relationship should be passive. Mentorship doesn't just happen when you're sitting in the same room as your mentor. Come with questions. Come with things that you want them to look at. And it really should be both sides. And only from both sides being active will it be a productive relationship.
Absolutely. And I like that. Make sure you come to your meetings prepared. I think that's great feedback for both mentors and mentees is if you're a mentor, you can give homework to your mentee. And if you are a mentee, come with your loaded questions. And, you know, I think realizing that no question is a dumb question and understanding that all the mentors who sign up want to do this, we ask them and we say, hey, are you interested in this? And that's it. And so if they sign up, that's because they really want to be there and they want to get to know the students. So I think coming prepared is a great idea. And I'm so thankful to both of you for your participation. I think this year has been really, honestly, a beautiful experience to watch. I regularly am in touch with our mentors, and I'm just like touched by the relationship that you guys have built in this last year. Jessica, we're so proud of you.
Thank you.
And our whole team has just kind of, you know, watched this relationship flourish, and we're so excited to see what happens next for you. Thank you all for tuning in today. And it was a great episode, and I hope to be back here with Grace soon.
Absolutely. You did such a great job. I'm definitely going to have you back.
Thanks for having me. Bye.